Hey class, there are several things I want to talk to you about. The first thing that I'm going to talk to you about is it's that time of the semester where it starts getting chilly and you want to play outside and you don't want to do your homework. And you want to do all these other things. You want to go to football games and you rush through your homework. This is really concerning me because several of you have not been reading the material or watching the lectures before you have been answering questions. So you're not really answering the questions correctly, so you don't get full credit or you don't get any credit at all. Some of you I'm thinking, aren't actually doing your work. I think you're having someone else do them and do your homework, and that's really concerning me. I do compare your case studies. I do compare those to your discussion questions and answers as well. So if you're performing really well in your case studies, but your discussion questions are written poorly, then I'm going to know that you're not writing your case studies, that you're having someone else do it, or that you're really being quite lazy and not proofreading your discussion questions or not taking time to do them correctly. And this really disappoints me and it makes me sad. So you need to be careful on what messages you're sending me, because if the quality of your work in one kind of assignment is one way and not in the others, then I know that two people are doing the assignment. So be careful. If I keep seeing it, I will be forced to penalize you and possibly drop you from the class for plagiarism, or for stealing another person's work and claiming it as your own. I really don't want to do this, so I want to make sure that I'm upfront about it now. Get your stuff together, people. Okay, the second thing I want to talk to you about is communication excellence theory. That's what we're talking about this week. It's also posted as positive communication in your syllabus, also known as the principles and the skills. The misconceptions actually were originally part of communication excellence theory. Communication excellence theory was developed by Julian Merivale. He's a professor at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. The reason why we're not using some of his work as something to refer to is because his book is currently in press. So I have nothing that actually lines out what communication excellence theory is that he's actually written. All that I have is what I've written about communication excellence theory, because that's the theory that I used to do my master's project. So what you're reading, the misconceptions and the principles and skills, that's actually what I've written about the theory under the guidance of Julian Merivale. So that's where we're at. I'm going to talk to you about how I've made sense of communication excellence theory and how I've applied it. But I'm not going to go through every single principle and every single skill, because first off, it's pretty carefully been edited and gone through several times in the paper, so what you have, you should be able to understand it from. If you don't understand it, you can give me a call, give me an email, and I'll do my best to make sure that you understand the theory. So, originally, communication excellence theory had principles, misconceptions, not miscommunications, misconceptions, and it had skills. Recently, since I've actually finished my master's project, he's changed it and he's eliminated the misconceptions, but I think they're still really necessary for you to understand, and so that's why I included them, but I did not put them in the communication excellence, under the umbrella of communication excellence theory. But how I've made sense of it all is it's like building a house. The principles are the foundation for the house. It's how we make sense of communication as a whole. It's how we build upon it. That's where the skills come from. It's the foundation for the rest of the theory. The misconceptions, are the pieces of rotten wood that we throw out. These ways of thinking about communication that are harmful. In order to embrace these principles and embrace the skills, we have to throw away these bad ideas about what we think communication is. The principles are how we should think about communication. And then the skills are areas where we can really work to to become better communicators. Because we believe these things are true, the principles, because we believe these principles are true, then we must develop these skills to become better communicators. So the skills are vitally important. We've kind of talked about them, or I might have mentioned them to one of you or a few of you based on some of your comments or your case study, things like that. But the skills are areas in our life or are things that we are already probably doing that we can do better to become our best communicator, our best communicative selves. So the skills are really important. When we think about the skills, we need to think of them as different areas of our life where we can get better. There's no perfect though. So one of the misconceptions is that communicating well means being perfect. We're throwing that idea out because you can never be a perfect listener. You can never be a perfect greeter. You can never be a perfect anything. So you're just trying to be better. You can't just decide that you're going to develop these skills overnight. Just like if you play an instrument, you don't start the first day. You don't start the second day or even the second year being proficient or being wonderful at it, making beautiful music. And that's the same with communication. You don't pick up a bat and immediately start hitting home runs. That's the same way it is with communication, and people don't think about it this way. So they think that they've been listening their whole lives, so they have to be these wonderful listeners, but that's simply not true. There's several different kinds of listening, as you can read in the paper, and you may not be employing the empathetic listening, which is what I advocate for and what Dr. Mariville argues for. So you have to practice these things in order to become more and more skilled at them. It's like learning a martial art or learning how to paint or learning how to do anything where you develop skills. You don't just decide that you're going to do them one day and you're going to be great at them. It's a lifelong journey of getting better at doing these things and practicing them and failing and practicing and failing and having some successes, but then having a lot of failures because you're not always going to be your best communicator, and that's okay. But to be your communicative best, you need to practice these, and it's okay to fail. Failing is beautiful just as well as succeeding is beautiful. Like I said, it's a lifelong journey. So when you fail, you can't beat yourself up. You just have to keep practicing and keep at it. It's really straightforward. It's especially hard for me to talk about it because it's something that I've worked really closely with, and so I understand it so well, so it's hard for me to understand that you don't understand it because you're just now dealing with it. When we started learning it in my interpersonal communication class on the graduate level, it was really hard for us to grasp because we've studied communication, so it seems like we naturally think that we're good at initiating greetings and we're good at listening and encouraging and doing all these things, but personally, I'm an awful encourager. But I'm pretty good listener. So, obviously I need to work on my skills at encouraging, so I practice those daily with my husband. He's in grad school, so he needs lots of encouragement. So I practice encouraging him, especially because he's learning cooking. I encourage him to do better and to try new things to cook, and it's turned out really well. So you may be better at some things than you are with others, and that's normal. You may find that you struggle with one a lot, like I struggle with encouraging. You may struggle with complimenting, especially when it comes to being in an argument. And that's all right. It's okay. All of us that have master's degree in communication, and even the PhDs, we're not perfect communicators, and we never will be. But we can learn these ideas on how we can become better communicators and communicate best during crisis or during when things are going great and when things aren't going so great. That's what this theory tries to go about doing. It says, hey, we know how not to communicate. We know that yelling at our spouse and calling them names is probably not a good idea, and it's not a great way to diffuse a complex situation. But a lot of communication theories don't tell us what we should be doing, what good communication is. And that's what this theory is trying to do. It tells us what we can do to become better communicators. If you have any questions or if you need any guidance with this theory, I look forward to hearing your questions, helping you understand. Email me, whatever you need to do to understand this theory, because I think it's one of the most important theories that we discuss in this class, because it doesn't do any good if I just tell you how not to communicate and how you don't need to stand too close to people, or you don't need to be violating people's expectations, or all these different things that we've talked about. It's vitally important that I inspire you and that I help you to become better communicators, so that you can have healthier relationships with your spouse, with your friends, with your coworkers, with people that you meet on the street. That's the goal of this class, and I really think that this theory helps fulfill that goal. So with that, I sign off, and I look forward to reading your discussion questions and learning about how you're making sense of this theory, because I think it, again, is the most important, that I really want you to understand it and to be able to apply it in your life. With that, I'll tell you good night, because it's 10:39 p.m. You're not the only one that procrastinates. Have a good night.